What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Attack on Cowboys. Now, y'all may have seen my mid-game live reaction as I was at AT&T Stadium watching this Baltimore Ravens beatdown of the Dallas Cowboys backups and third string and fourth string players. I'm going to be completely honest with y'all on this video, though. We're going to talk about some things I'm genuinely a little bit concerned about, some things I think you guys need to calm down with just a little bit, because I actually have legitimate proof and reasoning as to why what you saw from the Dallas Cowboys offense isn't nearly as bad as what it actually produced. I promise y'all, bro, it's not that bad, but something that's involved with it actually is. Let's get into it, as it's time to keep it real, y'all. It's time to keep it real. Shut your up. All right, Ravens beat the Cowboys 31-13, and I'm gonna be completely honest, bro. This was never really truly a game. The only reason the Cowboys scored was, honestly, for me, in a worst case scenario type situation, because I'm not actively pulling against anybody, but when I've seen play from a certain player that's just been so terrible, so bad, that you can't even justify why he has a spot on the roster. Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, bro. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. You know what you put on tape, bro. You know what you put on tape. You a Cowboy, so we going to support you, and we want you to get better. But that don't mean that we going to trust that you're going to be consistently better. And I'm talking about Andrew Booth, y'all. Andrew Booth got that pick six. The audience went wild. It was lit up in the stadium. I ain't gonna lie. It was lit up in there. But the only thing I could possibly think about, me and TP turned to each other as we was at the bar sipping on our little fruity drinks. We turned to each other and we was like, hey, man, that was the worst possible case scenario for who got that pick. Because that right there is going to give the coaching staff and organization more reason to stand by their trade piece that they traded for last season. Remember, he was traded for last season. I believe he was the guy that we traded Nashawn Wright for. They're going to stand by that more now because he got that pick six. He did get physical. That's one thing about Andrew Booth, man. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there and actually tackle. His issue has just been coverage, and that's what makes me scared. We're going to just start on the defensive side of the ball since we're here right now. There were a couple of guys on defense that honestly stood out to me, and we're about to have a conversation about the defensive tackles because, especially being live at the game, it confirmed everything that I thought I was seeing on tape from afar. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But there's a couple of things on defense. The linebacking group, Matt Eberflus and his influence, you can easily see it taking place on these linebackers right now. Those guys are flying around quick. They're playing fast, and they look confident in what they're doing. And you can tell that Shamar James, Damone Clark, Jack Sanborn, pretty much the entire linebacking group that played, man, they were on point. Now, I will say Maris did get stiff arm. Maris did get stiff arm out there. But it happens to the best of them, right? It happens to the best of them. But the linebackers looked really good. And I think when we have our starters out there, we have our full complement of D linemen, the guys that are supposed to keep those guys clean, the Osa Odigizus, the Solomon Thomases, the Micah Parsonses, the Dante Fowlers, a lot of the guys that didn't actually play. When we have those guys out there on the field, then I think we know that our linebacking group is going to be good. So that's one thing that I've learned so far throughout preseason is I trust our linebackers. I trust our linebacker depth, not just the linebackers, the depth. And remember depth, because depth is going to be an issue in just a second. Now, outside of that, the corners. Kevon Hall, he had himself a nice little showing, but I'm still afraid. I'm still very afraid because at the end of the day, the Ravens put up 31 points. At the end of the day, the Ravens put up 31 points, and regardless of how those 31 points came, they put up 31 points. And a lot of people may have felt like that the Cowboys were getting run all over. They actually were not. So the run defense, the defensive line, the linebackers, just the run defense as a whole, the Cowboys did a good job of playing good team run defense, meaning guys are running to the ball. There's multiple guys running to the ball on several occasions. The times they did get gashed, that didn't allow them to mentally break them and just completely break down for the rest of the game. I believe Nick Harris actually had the statistic. I think the Cowboys allowed like 3.5 yards per carry on the entire game as far as run defense. So that's honestly a good showing from the run defense. They look good. Now, the thing that was a little bit concerned, because I was paying attention to this. Now, again, the run defense, they did their job for the most part. Mazi Smith isn't terrible. Mazi Smith isn't getting his ass beat every single play, but Mazi Smith is losing way too many reps, or he's stalemating way too many reps. And I'm sorry, you're a first-round draft pick, and you're playing against some of the players that you're playing against, and you're going into your third season, and then there's expectations on you, and there's things that people need to see from you. Stalemating isn't good enough. Stalemating is as good as losing a rep, in my opinion. And just because you're able to hold your gap or to fill your gap, but you do it only after being knocked 3 to 4 yards off the ball, are you really still doing your job? Mazi Smith, there was a noticeable difference, especially being as close as I was to the field, bro. You could probably smell the dude poop if he did it. There was a noticeable difference between the get off between Jay Toya and Mazi Smith. And I'm not trying to make this a thing. Mazi should still be the starter, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. Mazi should still be a starter because Jay Toya, to me, he isn't in good enough condition yet. His conditioning is what starts to become noticeable for him towards the end of the game. As the game progresses, you can see him start to taking those real big breaths, and he's starting to huff and puff, and that chest is moving. But even when we saw him doing that, there was a specific play where the ball went the other direction, and they still scored the touchdown. That's what you want, bro. You're going to fill that gap. You got to be destructive in doing that, and you broke the Ravens line down on that side, bro. Like, it completely collapsed on that right side of the line, even though they ran it to the defense's left. On the defense's right side, it completely collapsed. That's because that get off of Jay Toya, bro. The double team couldn't even get hands on him firmly. And that's his superpower. That's something that was noticeable throughout the game. And to me, that was maybe the most noticeable trait out of your interior D lineman that played yesterday. Out of Mazi Smith, Jay Toya, I think Denzel Daxon got some run out there. A couple of those other guys. Out of those guys, to me, that get off from Jay Toya was the most noticeable trait. He has really, really good timing. He has a great initial punch to that get off. So once he gets off that ball, he's getting you nice impact, bro. And that to me is the difference. It's like Mazi, yes, he's strong, but it's almost like he over relies on his strength instead of trying to utilize all those small advantages like getting off the ball in a timely fashion or anything like that, or the leverage or whatever it may be. It's almost like he tries to just play with the power of his arms. That's almost what it looks like with Mazi. And that's why you're seeing him getting pushed back and stuff off the ball, because he's not playing with a strong base. Mazi's not playing with a strong base. He's not getting off the ball quick enough. And if the offensive lineman beats you off the ball and they get hands on you first, more than likely you are going to get knocked 3 to 4 yards off the ball no matter how strong you are. Unless you're just a Vince Wilfork type, you more than likely are going to get knocked 3 or 4 yards off the ball. That's the biggest issue with Mazi. That was the most noticeable thing to me. And it just seems like from an effort standpoint, it's just something. There's just something not clicking with Mazi Smith. I want to see the dude do well. He's a Dallas Cowboy. He's a human being. So I want to see him do well. I don't want this thing to where everybody's piling on Mazi. I don't know why I criticized Mazi one time heavily in one video, and everybody trying to make it seem like I've been out here trying to bury Mazi Smith for 3 years. I'm not that guy. Y'all are coming to the wrong person. I haven't been trying to bury none of our players. We try to uplift our players, but we also keep it real on what we're seeing. And to me, that was the noticeable difference. Again, the run defense actually did a pretty damn good job, mainly because of the linebackers and how they were flying around the field. But when you're trying to evaluate players, you evaluate positions, I wasn't really paying too much attention to the score and stuff like that. I was more so looking at individual matchups and how players were doing. And the defensive line, I'll say that. James Houston, to me, stood out. Donovan Ezeraku got himself a fumble recovery, or what would have been a fumble recovery, but it was called back because of forward motion on the arm. But beyond that, James Houston is destructive, and I think James Houston has to have a place on this 53-man. Whether that means you have to cut someone like a Peyton Turner, you may have to do that. But James Houston looks really, really good. And I want to say, is he one of the UFL guys? I'm not sure. But he looks really, really good. He's playing with great energy out there. He plays with great pace, and he's destructive. I really like what I've seen from James Houston now in 2 preseason games, and he was one of the guys that stood out. When you look it up at the big screen, like, damn, who made that play? It was James Houston. It was Shamar James. It was Damone Clark. It was those guys. So great job to the linebacking group tonight in an effort where the defense got their ass beat. No cap. 31 points is crazy. Let's move to the offensive side of the ball, ladies and gentlemen. The offensive side of the ball, this is the side of the ball we need to panic for. Not because of the play calling, not because of the scheme, because, again, Schotty has already told us, and he stood by his guns. He didn't tell us, I'm going to open it up a little bit more this week. No, he stood by his guns. He said, we're doing vanilla. We're doing vanilla. And I can tell you, bruh, there were times where even that vanilla would have allowed the Cowboys to actually score more points. There was a play where Joe Milton dumped it off to Deuce Vaughn in the flat, but he had Ryan Flanoy wide open. All he had to do was throw it on his inside shoulder. He had Ryan Flanoy wide open for a touchdown. I mean, and there was no one there helping him. In fact, the guy that could have been in position to help him is the guy that ended up having to take Deuce. So the play itself honestly opened up Flanoy for a wide open touchdown. So when I'm watching this stuff, and I'm not just paying attention to, oh, we only scored 13 points. No. Actually watch the drives. Watch the plays that weren't made. That's what you need to do. Watch the plays that weren't made. I mean, and Flanoy was on the same side of the field as that progression that he made to Deuce. When he dropped off in the flat, all he had to do was literally look to the left a little bit, and he would have seen Flanoy running a streak right down the motherfucking field, wide open. His DB was not only behind him, but positioned on the outside shoulder. So that would have been a wide open pass had he thrown it to Ryan Flanoy's inside shoulder. And there was a couple of situations like that where Joe Milton and his unreadiness, quite frankly, to play NFL quarterback, it was on display. And it made the vanilla game planning, it made the offense that we were running look a lot worse than what it actually was. Now, what was pretty bad was the run game. But when the offense as a whole can't get in the rhythm, that's what's going to happen. Everything's going to look pretty bad. I will say this, 12, 15 carries, 16 carries for your actual running backs compared to 23 passes. Are we going to complain about that? Honestly, that's kind of the ratio of a split that I would want to see in an actual game. I don't need to see 50-50. And we got to get off of that thinking that because Schotty said he's going to run the damn ball. No, he meant he's going to run it in a meaningful way. When the games matter, by the way, y'all, when the games matter, he's going to run it in a meaningful way. When it actually is going to be productive for the offense. That doesn't mean I'm going to get us 50-50 split or we're going to go 60-40 running and passing the ball. So I don't want to hear any complaints about, oh, he didn't run the ball enough. 23 passes to damn 16 running plays. Cut it out, y'all. It's not that big of a disparity. And quite frankly, in a game like this, when you're honestly are trying to see what the hell you have in your quarterback, now I see why Schotty was saying they wanted to see what they had in Joe Milton because quite frankly, I don't think they're convinced that Joe Milton is not only the answer for the backup position, but he's not the answer for the future. For those of y'all that thought that he was the guy that they needed to develop for the future, I don't know, man. I think Joe Milton just might be here for a couple of seasons till his contract is up next year, and we might end up having to just say, so long, farewell, and end up drafting a rookie on a rookie contract, and that may be the best option, quite frankly, because Joe, the accuracy, the processing, getting through his reads, it's just a lot left to be desired. And Will Grier, honestly, he came in and he didn't look much better. One negative thing did come from that game outside of Jonathan Mingo. Mingo fan club, we're alive and strong. Mingo looks very much so like a legitimate deep ball threat. He looks like a legitimate deep ball target. And I hope that he's healthy because Jonathan Mingo did end up leaving the game with a knee injury. The Cowboys fear wide receiver Jonathan Mingo suffered an injury to his PCL in his right knee. According to multiple sources, he's set for an MRI Sunday to determine severity, but he could need time to recover. That is super, super unfortunate. Kevontae Turpin, you're up. Jalen Tolbert, you may have just been saved a little bit. Hell, Treshaun Holden, that may have gotten you a roster spot. If he has to end up being in a situation where he needs to be put on the PUP list before the season starts, this could end up getting a guy like a Treshaun Holden on the team. So we're going to look for the silver linings. Maybe we get to retain a player we otherwise wouldn't have retained. But hopefully Jonathan Mingo is fine. Hopefully he doesn't have a long recovery because I do think that this is going to be a season where he can start to change the perception that people have of what he is as a player, right? But overall, very, very difficult to fairly grade the offense when you have the kind of quarterback play that you're having. Very difficult to judge the play calling and the scheme when there's so many plays left out there. When you see guys are actually running wide open, where guys are getting open within the scheme and they're just not being hit, it's going to make the scheme look a lot worse than what it is. And again, we're seeing a vanilla concept, but even with these vanilla concepts, we're seeing guys run wide the hell open. We're seeing guys get open for these big explosive plays. Jonathan Mingo getting good separate. We're seeing guys not only get good separation, but being put in positions to where those big plays or big explosive plays aren't too difficult to make happen. They're getting on single coverage. They're getting them in position where the DBs, just based off the play design, they're in a bad position. So I love what I saw from the linebackers. The run defense looks a lot better. than people are probably giving it credit for, just based off of a lot of the longer runs. The Rasheen Ali, there was a couple of runs where you really thought he was about to break one loose. But outside of those couple of runs, the run defense was honestly a lot better than what people probably really give it credit for. Tyler Booker looks really good. He played a lot of snaps. I was surprised how long he played. I want to say he played into the third quarter. He played a lot of snaps, and Tyler Booker looked really good in his showing. The quarterback play was just so bad that it's very hard to fairly evaluate the rest of the offense. I'm just going to keep it real with y'all. Very hard to fairly evaluate the rest of the offense. But either way, those were my full and honest thoughts from this game. And as far as Brian Schottenheimer, I have not lost faith. I don't think people need to overreact to this stuff, man. Y'all got to remember, bro, this and what these coaches are doing, Schotty already gave us a heads up, bro, of what they're trying to do. Yes, he said that it was disappointing and they need to do better. He did say that. So I'm not saying that there's no room for growth. I'm not saying that our backups aren't a cause for concern, because quite frankly, if we have a couple of injuries at a couple of different positions, it gets ugly. It's going to get treacherous. I mean, that's what we're learning right now through this preseason, because this is a lot of guys that just are not ready yet. But there have been some bright points, and I think people just need to emotionally detach from wins and losses in the preseason, and you'll be able to handle what you're supposed to be looking at a lot better. Because quite frankly, there was a lot of plays left out on that field, and I think that if you have a Dak Prescott, if you have a CeeDee Lamb, a George Pickens, that completely changes the complexion of what your offense looks like. That completely changes the complexion of how the defense gets to play against you. So y'all got to remember that it's going to be a huge variable thrown into there. And as long as guys stay healthy, that's what our season is going to be riding on, is our key players staying healthy, quite frankly. Because the depth pieces, I don't know if they're quite there yet. Maybe it's just because of the vanilla offense and they're not allowed to, they're not being boosted by what's being called or what's being done. But a lot of the backup pieces are a little bit concerning. But I do think that we have some decent depth at certain places. Linebacker, we have good depth at. Pass rusher, James Houston, and a couple of other guys. You got Sam Williams and obviously Donovan Ezraiku. I think we got good depth at pass rusher. Our offensive line, the run game was not working. Now, there was times where Tyler Booker opened up some nice seams, but by and large, the run game was just not working a whole lot. And Deuce and Miles and all them boys pretty much averaged just 2 yards per carry. So that's something that in game 3, we got to see the starters. That's what I will say about this. Keeping it completely honest, we have to see the starters in game 3, Schotty. We got to. That's just what it is. But I'm not concerned. Y'all shouldn't be concerned. Remember, we got some big guns coming. And it's going to be looking completely different when Schotty's out there actually calling games to win. And he's not calling things to see certain guys and how they look in certain types of situations and stuff like that. It's going to be a completely different type of vibe. And again, I could see if the offense was just anemic because of what it looked like. It was anemic because of guys not being able to execute. And that's just the simple matter of the fact. And I'm not trying to pile on Joe. It is what it is. Joe kind of blew. Either way, appreciate y'all for tuning in. How about? Don't count.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still them boys? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still them boys. Hey! Woo! Oh, shut up, my boy. Hey! I'm still them boys.